In the ancient age, two kingdoms lived apart. The elves ruled the forests above. Their home was Elaria, where rivers flowed through trees and magic lived in the water. Beneath the sea, a quiet kingdom named Thalor hid under waves and coral walls, led by merfolk who spoke through silence and tide. The two worlds rarely met, but everything begins to change when one kingdom stops listening. Elaria of House Loras walked beside the sacred river. The water still moved, but slower than it should. The trees looked dry. The wind felt wrong.
Elaria, the council called for your father again.
They think we can fix this like before. That is impossible.
I don't really know what is on their minds. They think we caused it.
People had not used the word drought yet, but fear was already growing. The river didn't dry, it just stopped. The forest grew quiet, the air turned sharp. The elders met in secret.
For years, the Loras family guarded the river. Now it dies under their name.
No one defended them. Even the prince, the one who once admired Elaria, said nothing. And in that silence, she knew her family's place had begun to fall. The river kept getting smaller. The trees turned yellow. The animals stopped coming to drink. No one had seen the forest like this before. Some said it was only drought, but others started to look for deeper reasons.
This is weird. The river has never gone quiet, not even in the dry years.
This is really strange. It changed the year she was born.
Elaria hears the council speak about her family. She wasn't meant to hear anything, but the door was thin and the words came through clearly.
Her family held the river's trust for generations, but now something is broken.
If she carries something cursed, it will spread. We really need to do something.
We cannot ignore what's right in front of us.
Elaria stood quietly and walked away. She didn't speak, but she knew they were talking about her. That night, her father stood before the council flame. He looked tired, but proud.
My daughter is not the reason for the river's silence. She's part of our line. She honors it.
And yet the river began to fade after her birth.
This is not anger, it is survival.
No one spoke for the Loras family after that. They had already decided. The sun had not yet risen when the guards came to the Loras home. They brought no weapons, only words. But words were enough.
The council calls you, all of you. You are to answer before the elders.
We have done nothing wrong.
Then you have nothing to fear.
But they all knew fear was already there. The council chamber was full. No one looked them in the eye. The crest of House Loras hung above the flame. By the end of the meeting, it wouldn't be there.
House Loras has failed its sacred duty. The river no longer flows. The forest fades.
You think this is my fault?
Not think, we see. Since your birth, the land has weakened.
The council voted. The decision was final. The Loras name was removed from the guardianship. They did not exile her family, only her. One name, one punishment.
Elaria of House Loras, you are banished beyond the forest boundary.
No, please, take me instead. This will be unfair. Let me, her father, take the consequences.
She carries the mark. She must go.
There were no chains. No guards followed. But the sentence held heavier than stone. Elaria left the chamber with no crown, no home, and no path. She packed at night when the trees were still and no one watched. There was nothing left to carry except her mother's crest and her father's silence. Her house no longer belonged to her. The forest didn't either.
Are you sure you won't wait until morning?
No, I need to go while I still have the strength.
Her father didn't speak. She had already lost her name. She didn't want to lose her heart too. Before leaving, she stopped at the river. It no longer flowed, but it still held her memories. She stood in silence, hoping for nothing, until she heard footsteps behind her. It was him, the prince, the one who once smiled when she laughed, the one who stayed silent when she was cast out. He had followed her now, when it no longer mattered.
I should have spoken in that hall.
It wouldn't have still changed anything.
At least, I still should have spoken.
She looked at him, not as a prince, just as someone she had loved before the silence began.
You'll be a king someday.
Yes, but not without losing something first.
They didn't kiss. They didn't hold hands. They just stood side by side, near the broken river, until the sun touched the trees. Then she turned away.
If there's still a river in you, follow it.
She didn't answer, but she kept walking. The trees thinned, the salt wind rose, and the forest let her go. The trees ended without warning. Dry cliffs opened ahead. The path turned to stone. Elaria stepped forward and saw the ocean for the first time. It moved without stopping.
I have never been this far before.
She looked down the coast, then ahead, and kept walking. There was no shelter. She searched for cover behind rock walls and found little. She pulled bark from drifted wood, 8 small roots she could dig. Her feet blistered. Her voice stayed quiet.
There has to be more than this. I didn't come this far for nothing.
But she did not turn back. On the 5th morning, she climbed the ridge and looked out. The tide was low. Rock pools stretched below her. Far out, the waves broke in long rows. She stood still and watched.
If this is where I'm meant to go, then show me how.
Then she climbed down the path and stepped into the water. Elaria walked into the shallow bay. She moved slowly, step by step, until the waves reached her waist. Then she let go of the ground and began to swim. Below, eyes watched her from behind coral. They didn't rise to stop her. They waited. Later, the current pulled her toward the edge of a reef. Her arms were weak. She grabbed a rock and held on. A voice came from above.
Don't struggle. Let me pull you in.
A mermaid with dark hair reached for her. Others swam behind her, quiet and unsure.
She is not seaborn.
But she is not from the land we know either.
She expected fear, tight lungs, panic. But none came. She inhaled, and it worked. The water flowed through her like breath, not drowning her, but feeding her.
This is not possible.
But it was, because her blood remembered something she had never been told. She was born under twin moons, a tide-born, a child of both land and sea, and the ocean had simply been waiting for her to return. They brought her to a small reef village, quiet, poor, but safe. An elder came forward and looked at her closely.
You carry no fins, but the ocean brought you. That means something.
I have nowhere else to go.
Then stay. Work if you can. Speak only when needed.
They didn't trust her, but they didn't turn her away. And for now, that was enough. The reef village was small and quiet. No guards, no towers. The people survived by trading shells, weaving sea thread, and tending to shallow coral beds. Elaria watched how they worked. She asked nothing. She followed. She helped carry bundles of kelp, gathered stones for repair work, cleaned fish lines. Some nodded at her, others turned away.
We don't need her. Landwalkers come and go. They leave nothing.
This one hasn't left yet. Let's hope and see the outcome.
One evening, a child lost her woven pendant in the current. Elaria dove without speaking. She came back with it wrapped in her hand. The mother took it from her. No, thank you. But she didn't look away anymore. The elder brought her to a shallow cave near the edge of the reef. There was a stone ledge and a woven mat of tide grass.
It's not much, but it's yours.
I have never had anything that was mine alone.
She placed her mother's crest beside her and slept without fear. At the kelp fire that night, someone asked where she came from. She didn't name the elven kingdom, but she spoke of rivers, trees, and how silence can feel heavier than words.
You talk like you have lost something.
I did, but maybe I found something else.
She didn't speak of where she was from, only of what she was learning to stay for. The elder watched her help 2 children weave rope. She didn't speak, but her eyes softened just a little. For 3 nights, the sea grew quieter. Fish swam in odd patterns. Coral branches bent toward one direction, though no current touched them. The villagers felt it. So did Elaria.
The reef is acting strange.
Don't speak of signs unless the sea confirms it.
What does that mean?
It means sometimes the sea remembers more than we do.
She woke before dawn and swam out beyond the coral wall where the water darkened. She didn't know why she was going there. She just knew something was calling her. At the bottom of a narrow trench, she found a stone cracked in 2. It had carvings on its face, symbols that pulsed when she came near.
What are you?
The light inside the cracks brightened. Then it dimmed again. The current swirled around and vanished. She returned to the village, wet and shaken. She waited until nightfall, then stepped into the elder's shelter. The elder looked up before she spoke.
There's something down there. A broken stone. It reacted when I touched it.
You should not have gone near that place.
Why not?
Because it doesn't answer to most. It only wakes for blood it remembers.
You think it remembered me?
I think you are asking questions the sea has been waiting to hear for a long time.
Elaria left the shelter. She didn't understand what was changing, but she knew something had already begun. In the deep temple, where no tide touched without permission, the high priestess opened her eyes. The water had moved, not with force, but with memory. She lit the coral flame.
If the reef has begun to speak again, we must listen.
She walked alone into the lower archives. She opened a sealed shell chamber marked with the crest of the old queen. Inside lay a scroll wrapped in tide thread, untouched since the Queen's death years ago. The ink had faded, but the words were still sharp.
A child of land and sea, born beneath the twin moons. Her blood shall wake the reef. If stolen from the tide, silence shall follow until her return.
The priestess read the lines again. She had never heard them spoken in the court, because no one was meant to know. Near the bottom, hidden beneath folded shell, was a name etched in coral dust ink. Not a title, just a name.
Elaria.
And for a moment, the walls of the temple shimmered. The sea had remembered what the kingdom chose to forget. The forest had lost its color. Leaves turned to ash before falling. The river barely flowed. Crops failed. Hunger spread from one branch of the kingdom to the next. Since the death of the old king, his son had taken the crown. But the crown brought no answers, only questions that grew heavier with every season. In the court square, voices rose louder each day.
My children cannot drink dust. Please do something.
My king, where are the roots that once fed us?
Our king is working on this. Everyone should know that. The land is broken. We must act.
But no one, even the king, has no answers. Only fear. The new king no longer held meetings in the court hall. He sat alone in the old river chamber, the place where he once watched Elaria walk beside the water. The chamber was dry now. The roots above him cracked.
We took everything from her, and the forest took everything from us.
He had ruled with reason. Now he ruled with silence. And silence was not enough. At night, the council met without his call. They spoke of moving the people south and giving up the sacred river. Some even said to seek old forest spirits the kingdom had abandoned long ago.
If the river will not return, then we leave it behind.
What if the river waits for someone we cast out?
Then it will wait forever.
The king did not speak that night, but he heard their words, and for the first time, he considered that they may have been wrong about everything. Inside the reef temple, the high priestess held up an old scroll. The Tide Sisters stood in silence. Elaria stood in the center, unsure of what would happen.
Her name is written here. She is the child of the twin moons, the one the sea has been waiting for.
The current moved gently through the temple, not toward the throne, but toward Elaria. The reef court grew still as the reigning queen entered. She had ruled since the last queen's death, chosen by council in a time of silence. Her crown glowed dimly, her posture was proud, but her eyes flickered when she saw Elaria standing before the coral throne. The sea's light moved only toward the girl, not her.
This throne did not sit empty all these years. I held it when no one else could. I answered the sea.
You carried it until the reef remembered who it was meant for.
Memories fade. Power stays with those who protect it.
But then the coral under her feet began to dim. The current drifted around her, not away, but past her, as if she no longer existed in its path. The crown on her head grew cold, and the reef pulsed again, this time toward Elaria.
So it's true.
She stood there, holding on for one last breath. Then she reached up, removed the coral crown, and stepped forward.
Then take it. But know the sea forgets faster than it forgives.
She placed the crown at the altar, bowed once to the sea, not the court, and left without turning back. Elaria walked to the coral throne. She placed her hand on the throne. The reef glowed brighter. A soft crown of coral rose from the water and hovered in front of her.
The sea remembers you. That is enough now.
Then I will remember it too.
The crown rested on her head, and the sea around them calmed. After her crowning, Elaria wandered the reef paths in silence. The sea moved gently around her, calm and steady, but her thoughts were not. She remembered the trees, the river, her parents' faces, the forest that once whispered her name.
They let me go, but I never let them go.
A tide courier arrived at the temple gates, carrying a water-sealed scroll. It came from the elven kingdom, but it was not addressed to her. Temple Sister read aloud.
Message from the elven kingdom. To the Queen of the River, we beg your help. The forest is dying. The river no longer flows. If you can hear us, send mercy. We have no other name to call.
They didn't know she wore the crown. They didn't know the river they once cursed had followed her into the sea.
They do not know it's me.
That night she stood at the edge of the reef cliffs. The high priestess joined her, but stayed silent.
They cast me out, called me cursed. Now they call for help, not knowing who I am.
Will you answer?
Yes, for the king I loved, for the parents who believed in me, and for the river that never left me.
The sea opened a long current through the dark, and the queen followed it back to where her name was forgotten. The forest had grown quiet, not the peace of healing, the stillness of waiting. At the edge of the riverbed, where no water flowed, the elves gathered. They had heard the Queen of the River had answered their plea. But no boats came. Only a figure in a sea-colored cloak stepped onto the cracked earth.
Who are you?
She removed her hood, and the Queen of the Sea stood where a stranger once walked. The wind shifted.
Elaria.
No guards stopped her. No counsel interrupted. She walked straight to the dried roots of the river tree, and behind her, the sea moved in silence.
You asked the Queen of the River for help. You didn't know she was the girl you sent away.
We were wrong. We lost more than you, and we've paid for it every season since.
You were afraid. And fear makes people cruel.
She looked at the riverbed, then stepped into it, and placed her hand on the dry stone.
But it was never your fault. It was destiny.
The ground shook. The roots of the river tree lit from within. A tremor passed through the forest, and the river moved. It flowed fast and bright, from root to root, hill to hill. For the first time in years, the forest drank. The elves fell to their knees. The king bowed his head. But Elaria didn't stay for praise.
I didn't come to rule. I came to heal.
Trade opened again. Boats crossed the sea. Elves and merfolk stood side by side. Two worlds, once broken, now shared the same water. And Elaria stood at the edge of both, no longer torn between them, She was not just the queen of the river, she was the reason it remembered how to flow.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment for more inspiring stories and content.